It started like any other quiet morning on the outskirts of Melbourne, but within hours an entire family would vanish from their home, leaving behind everything: money, phones, passports, and a trail of confusion that no one could explain. What made the Tromp family suddenly run as if escaping something unseen? Something dark seemed to have wrapped around their minds, pushing them toward a fear no one else could feel. It wasn't just a disappearance, it was the unraveling of sanity in real time. The Tromps were known as ordinary, hardworking people. Mark Tromp, 51, and his wife Jacoba, 53, had built a respected name in their town. From their property in Sylvan, they ran a thriving red currant farm and a successful earth-moving business. Together, they raised 3 children, Rihanna, 29, Mitchell, 25, and Ella, 22, and built what looked like a stable, happy life. But on the morning of August 29, 2016, everything changed. Without warning, the entire family abandoned their home. No note, no plan, no goodbye. They simply packed into their vehicle and drove north, leaving behind a life that had seemed perfectly normal the day before. This wasn't a vacation or a planned trip. It was a desperate flight, sudden and frantic, as if they were running from a threat that only they could see. To neighbors, the Tromps had always been reliable, grounded people, but overnight, they became a mystery, a family on the run from something invisible. When police entered the Tromp property the next day, what they found defied logic. The farmhouse stood open, unlocked. The family's main car was missing, but several others sat in the driveway with their keys still in the ignition. Inside, the scene was eerily precise. No chaos, no damage, just strange silence. Passports, credit cards, mobile phones, everything that any family would need for a long journey had been left behind. It was as if they had no intention of surviving outside for long. Then there were the papers. Stacks of business documents and financial records lay across the tables, carefully sorted, as if someone had been searching for something in panic, but with purpose. Investigators described the setting as disturbingly deliberate, orderly chaos with a haunting undertone. It didn't feel like a robbery or a simple disappearance. It felt like a message, or maybe a warning. As police tried to piece it together, new reports began surfacing. Accounts that Mark and Jacoba had become increasingly paranoid in the weeks before their disappearance. Friends described their growing fear, an unshakable belief that someone was coming to harm them, to take their fortune or destroy their lives. Whatever had infected their minds spread fast, gripping the family in shared panic. Of all 5, Mitchell seemed the only one still anchored to reason. He later explained that he joined the journey to protect his parents and siblings, hoping to calm them. But soon, their fear turned uncontrollable. Barely 30 kilometers from home, his parents demanded he throw away his phone, convinced it was being used to track them. Reluctantly, Mitchell obeyed, tossing it out of the car window. The silver Peugeot SUV continued speeding north through the night. They didn't stop for rest. They didn't call anyone. They just drove, hour after hour, as if trying to outrun the air itself. By dawn, they had reached Bathurst, 800 kilometers away. It was there that Mitchell reached his breaking point. The paranoia, the silence, the constant glances over shoulders, it became too much. He decided to leave and return home, hoping the rest would come to their senses. He boarded a train toward Sydney, leaving behind his parents and sisters, who carried on into the mountains. Mark, Jacoba, Rihanna, and Ella pressed east toward the Jenolan Caves, a tourist site surrounded by vast forests and steep cliffs, but the tension inside the car grew unbearable. The daughters, frightened by their parents' worsening mental state, made a plan to escape. In a moment of desperation, they stole a vehicle and fled south, reaching the town of Goulburn. There, they approached authorities, reporting that their parents had vanished. By now, the story had become national news. How could a family so ordinary suddenly collapse into chaos? The media called it one of Australia's strangest disappearances. The Tromps weren't in some isolated desert or wild terrain. They were traveling through busy towns, well-paved roads, and populated areas. And yet, their journey felt like something out of a nightmare, normality collapsing mile by mile. In Goulburn, the sisters' paths split again. At a petrol station, Ella told Rihanna she had to go home to feed her horses. It was a strange excuse, but perhaps an anchor to normal life. She drove away alone, heading back toward Victoria. When she reached the family's Sylvan property, police were already there. Ella became the first Tromp family member officially found. The next morning, Mitchell also returned home after days of travel, exhausted but safe. Both seemed shaken yet sane, confused about what their parents had done, but mentally stable enough to explain their sides. Rihanna's situation was far darker. Alone in Goulburn, she appeared to lose touch with reality. She somehow climbed into the back of a stranger's utility vehicle unnoticed. Nearly an hour passed before the driver discovered her curled up, terrified and disoriented. She couldn't recall her name or where she was. It was as if her mind had shut down entirely. She was taken to Goulburn Hospital and admitted for psychiatric care. Given her fragile condition, police chose not to press charges for the stolen car. Ella wasn't as fortunate. Despite being the one to flee for safety, she faced legal consequences for vehicle theft. Meanwhile, her parents, Mark and Jacoba, were still missing. Somewhere in the Blue Mountains, they had turned back south, retracing their route toward Victoria. But even together, they couldn't maintain control. By Wednesday, their long, chaotic journey brought them to Wangaratta, nearly 600 kilometers from where it had begun. And there, under strange and uncertain circumstances, they separated. What began as a family road trip had dissolved into a psychological collapse that gripped the entire nation. The question lingered. What were they running from? A real threat, or something inside their own minds? Something had broken within the Tromps. Something powerful enough to twist love into fear and turn home into a trap. The truth at that point was still buried somewhere between fear, confusion, and the quiet terror that only madness can create. It began with a silence that didn't feel normal. When Jacoba left Wangaratta, no one could understand how she managed to travel hundreds of kilometers north again without a trace. The route she took remained a complete mystery. By Thursday, she appeared wandering the streets of Yas, nearly 350 kilometers away. Locals said she looked lost, her eyes darting around like she was trapped inside her own thoughts. Agitated, confused, and frightened, she was taken into care and admitted to a nearby hospital. Later, she was transferred to Goulburn, where her daughter Rihanna was already being treated. The two stayed under medical supervision, both struggling to recover from something they could barely explain. Their minds had been fractured by fear and confusion. Each day, they tried to piece together what had happened, but the memories didn't make sense. Meanwhile, Mark remained in Wangaratta. Reports soon described him acting strangely, behaving in ways that didn't seem like him at all. Then he abandoned Ella's Peugeot on the roadside and fled on foot, disappearing into the trees. Around the same time, police began receiving calls about a string of small break-ins around town, including one at a local motel. Though suspicion naturally fell on Mark, authorities could never prove whether he was involved. Mitchell and Ella later spoke to the media, their words filled with disbelief and sorrow. Mitchell said, "I've never seen anyone like this or act this way. I just want my dad to be found. He's not dangerous, he's my mate, he's my father, I love him." Both siblings agreed that something inside their parents had changed, something deep and uncontrollable. The fear, the paranoia, the sudden distance from reality, it had consumed them. Nearly a week after the strange events began, the search for the last missing Tromp came to a close. On the 6th day, police found Mark sitting quietly near Wangaratta Airport. His face was pale and blank, his eyes empty. He didn't resist when officers approached. He was questioned, evaluated by mental health professionals, and released into the care of his brother, who was a police officer. As cameras flashed, Mark raised his middle finger at the photographers. It was a moment of defiance, a silent scream against the chaos that had swallowed his family. That single image spread across headlines, shocking the nation. But just days later, his tone changed completely. He apologized to the public, expressing regret for everything that had happened. His words were calm, almost broken, as he thanked authorities for their effort and apologized to those affected. For the first time, his voice carried humility instead of confusion. Investigators soon confirmed what many had begun to suspect. There had been no external threat. No one had been chasing them. What happened was not caused by danger from the outside, but by something that had grown inside their minds. It was fear that had turned inward, creating a storm they couldn't escape. The case became one of Australia's most haunting mysteries, proof that even an ordinary family could fall apart under invisible weight. Stories like this make you question what's real and what's imagined. Make sure to like the video and share it with your friends. And let us know in the comments what you think about this. Sergeant Mark Knight, who personally knew the family, said none of them had ever shown signs of mental illness before. That revelation only deepened the mystery. How could a stable, hardworking family suddenly unravel so violently? The public demanded answers, but all they found were theories. Some believed exposure to chemicals from their red currant farm might have triggered a psychological reaction. Others thought money problems or hidden debts could have pushed them over the edge. Police ruled both theories out. There was no chemical poisoning, no financial collapse, no threat from outside. Still, nothing could explain what had taken over their minds. Mental health experts began pointing toward a disturbing psychological condition, folie à deux, or madness of two. It happens when two or more people share the same delusion, feeding each other's fears until reality disappears. In the Tromp family's case, it seemed the delusion spread to almost every member. Rihanna later told Women's Day, "We are all very embarrassed. We didn't want to be famous. That's for famous people." Her voice carried the exhaustion of someone who had lived through a nightmare. During a press conference, Mitchell spoke again. "I had to go with my family. I couldn't leave them. But it was hard seeing them like that. I've never seen anything like it. But the main thing is, they're okay now. Everyone is safe, everyone is well." His words hinted at relief, but also sadness, as if a part of him still couldn't understand what happened. Ella described her confusion too. "It's very confusing. I still feel confused. Our minds weren't in the best place. I can't even explain it. It's bizarre." She admitted that her father had been slowly breaking down long before the trip began. The paranoia didn't come out of nowhere. It had been building silently for months. She said he often spoke of unseen threats and wanted to leave the farm because he believed they were in danger. At the same time, he thought the journey would bring them closer together, a way to reconnect as a family. During the trip, Ella confessed that she too began to believe him. Fear spreads fast when you love someone. She became convinced that someone was following them. Looking back, she realized it wasn't about any enemy outside. It was about the fear and pressure her father carried for too long, the kind that eats away at a person's mind until they can no longer see what is real. In the years since 2016, the Tromp family has stayed quiet, rebuilding their lives piece by piece. They returned to their farm, surrounded by the silence of open fields. With the support of friends, doctors, and their community, they've tried to leave the ordeal behind. But the memory still lingers, a shadow they live with, not one they talk about. If you are fascinated about strange and mysterious disappearances, then make sure to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss the next stories. Ella was briefly charged for stealing the car during the incident, but the case was later dropped after she reached an agreement with the owner. For the public, the story remains one of the most bizarre and chilling mysteries in modern Australia. But for the Tromp family, it has become something deeply personal, a lesson in fragility, recovery, and the slow, painful return to normal life. Even today, no one truly knows what caused it. Maybe it was fear, maybe exhaustion, or maybe something that words can't explain. But one truth remains: sometimes the scariest things don't come from outside, they come from the human mind itself.